Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. We're doing another anatomy lecture here today. This is my second attempt at this video. I drew all of this for the first one, and then my iPhone decided to run out of storage. So we're trying this one again. I deleted a bunch of stuff off my phone, so hopefully we won't have that issue and I can just go straight through the lesson and not have to deal with any of that. So yeah, this is kind of where we're headed today. We're gonna be talking about heads and facial structures and stuff like that. So I'm gonna find us a reference photo to go off of, and then we're just gonna start working. And actually, that one there is pretty good. So I've got one in front of me. This one I technically should show you guys, but it's too much work. We're just gonna create it, and it'll look cooler if it's like it's coming out of my brain, even though it's not. So we're gonna start off kind of the same way. This is how I started the last one too, and it worked out pretty well. So we're gonna do it again. We're gonna start off with a square. We're gonna make it 4 inches, 1, 2, 3, 4 by 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is going to be the base of our skull. 2, 3, 4. Working on a slightly different desk than I usually would, so this is going to be interesting. All right, so this is going to be the base of our skull here. We're going to ghost in a little circle on here, kind of feel out how we want this circle to be before we put a mark on the paper, and I think I'm liking that. That's a pretty circular circle there. So that's gonna be the base of our skull. I'm gonna actually rotate this. This is the beautiful thing about using a square, is it can be any direction I want. And I think I'm actually gonna do this one like this. I think it'll give me the space that I want and need. So when working out a facial structure like this, we're going to start with obviously a 1:1 ratio, but it's pretty important to note that a better ratio for it is a 2:3 ratio, which when working in 5s or 4s like I am, it's kind of dumb. Thankfully, the person who I'm using as a reference here has actually a pretty square head, so this is going to work out pretty okay. We're only going to have to add a little bit to the bottom, which is good. So we're going to add a bit of a center line here. This person is looking slightly askew from straight on, so it's going to be almost directly down the center. So yeah, that looks pretty good. I like where that is. Maybe a little bit more here. And then we're gonna, you see I brought this line down a little bit through the bottom of the circle. And that's gonna be important for adding in the extra kind of chin section here. We're gonna tack our chin, do a little bit of additive drawing, and add in that chin to the bottom of the structure that we're building off of. I'm gonna go like that. Okay. All right, so that is looking not quite correct there. So we're gonna fix that real quick. This should be coming off, I think, like that. We add a circle. This is going to be our kind of side plane of the head. If we make that circular, it's going to make it easier to tell kind of where the jaw is coming from. And I think, honestly, we're seeing way too much of that because this person is looking pretty straight on. I think it's going to honestly be more like that. Yeah, I can get behind that. And then we add this little section coming off of here. And as you can see, I'm still not loving it. I've cut way in on this. Let's see. I like that shape, but then how do I get this here? So I think honestly, I'm gonna cut it basically flat. That, Still not right. It might just be flat. Like, I don't know that I'm going to see any of that side plane, really. So I might just leave it, and then ears coming off like that. Yeah, it might honestly just be like that. I think I'm honestly pretty okay with that. So it's kind of the base structure I've got going on here. I think eye line is gonna be right about there. Using kind of the same method that I always like to use. This distance here, we're going to split it in half the best that we can. Let's see right there. Yeah, look at that. See? A little practice with that. That's going to be right in half. Now this is going to be the bottom of the nose. And then if we take this distance here and split that in half again, I'm going to ballpark it there. A little too much. Let's ballpark it there. Oh, it's basically right here. This is going to be the bottom of the bottom lip is going to be on that mark there. So those are kind of our big important kind of facial structures. It's kind of funny that it lined up right where the box was. But those are going to be our main structural positionings there, and are very important to note. Although I honestly think this eye line is too high. The eye line should be about halfway in this box, which, I mean, it was pretty close. I guess it was pretty right on. So that is actually going to be there. Always good to double check things, you know. As I say in woodworking, measure twice, cut once. So you want to make sure that all your stuff is accurate before you start adding on all the details and stuff, or else it's going to look weird. So very important to make sure that everything is a-okay. And I'm honestly feeling like this is going quite swimmingly. This one is honestly a little bit easier than the first one because it is more of a front-on view, but it'll have its challenges once we get there. Okay, so I'm gonna move here, and I'm gonna add in a little bit of this sort of a shape here as the plane of the skull. This is very nice. This is gonna be created by the kind of eye socket here. So we're adding in this bit of a brow ridge, which is really important. Really creates some nice depth and structure on the forehead, because if we add some contours onto this, you'll see this kind of going like that, right? And this is kind of what you want to be able to do and what you want to be thinking of as you're drawing any sort of a face, and, you know, really being able to picture and imagine these contours on there is hugely important. Now we're gonna take the center line and we're gonna add the nose onto it. And that kind of bend in the nose is normally gonna fall like right in the center of the ocular cavity. And now that we have the eye line marks on here, we can add in those ocular cavities, which are really important. Let's see, obviously, because eyes are such an important thing when describing the face and stuff like that. Good way to measure this out is kind of see if they're looking pretty even. They are not that even. So we're just gonna go in and fix that up a little bit. I like this shape more, so I'm gonna kind of try to mimic that one for the second one here and see how that goes. One of my biggest struggles as an artist is definitely matching up face shapes, you know, like getting the face symmetrical, basically. So getting the eyes to be perfectly symmetrical is always quite a challenge for me. So I'm definitely trying to work on that here with this drawing. And right now I'm feeling like these are pretty okay. So we're gonna leave those and circle back to this nose here, which we're gonna add on the ridge here, which goes down like that and then comes out here. And it's always good to see a little bit of overlap. This one here is almost like a tangent with that, but that'll get fixed up once we add the eyelids and actually put the eyes in the sockets, because right now they're just eye sockets. There's nothing in there. No thoughts in that head, so we don't really have anything to worry about, but we will come back to add the eyes actually in there later. So now I'm adding on my wedge for the nose. Good way to think about the nose structure is I kind of drew this on the last one, but I'll draw it again because it's so helpful, is thinking about it like this. So you have this here, which is going to be this section, which is that nose ridge, and then you have the middle section here, which we haven't quite added on this person, and she has a very minor one in this reference photo, so we're not going to see a lot of it. And you have the main bottom portion here, which is everyone's favorite section to add on because it's, you know, the big fun section. You can stylize it a lot and give it a lot of character, which is always super nice. We're going to remember to add on a bit of the side sections here because there really are kind of, you know, massive planes to this, to the nose, and remembering that, you know, it's not flat, you know, there's dimensionality to everything. Nothing in our world is truly 2D, you know, it just doesn't exist. So remembering that everything has structure and everything has depth to it is really important. Remembering those contours is just going to make your drawing so much better. And remembering where your contours happen is also going to allow you to become better at lighting and shading and coloring. Because like if I see that there's, you know, these contours here, I can boom, 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 add that and be like, okay, boom, I know that shadows are going to be on that side. Look at that. Look at the depth to that. It's astonishing. It's amazing. So another important thing to remember with the nose is that these structure pieces here, they're not in line. So you'll see sometimes people will draw a nose and they'll have the bottom of the nose line up with here, right? And you'll get kind of that sort of a shape, but that's not true. This bottom section of the nose should extend down past where those nostrils lie on the face. So that's why I'm adding in this bottom section of the wedge here to show that progression downwards and keep it offline with the nostril pieces, which I'm gonna kind of tack on here a little bit and throw a little bit of a structure on for those. And her nostrils are not that big, so we're just gonna dial that back a little bit. We're gonna go up here, add on these side planes a little bit more, and boom, we have a pretty fair nose shape. Obviously right now it's quite blocky, which we're going to fix up a little bit as well. We could use a little bit more dimensionality on this here for sure. So try to get that going a little bit more to try to add in that little ridge section here. How that works. And yeah, always remember that you can always like edit your reference photo. You never have to draw exactly what you see. The great thing about being an artist and, you know, showing art to the world is you are showing what you want to see. You'll see this a lot in figure drawing and, you know, quick life drawing sessions, is the artist is not normally capturing, you know, the model as accurately as they could. They're often capturing what they want to see or what they like in the pose. So if you see a feature that you really like in a reference photo that you're looking at, exaggerate it, really push it to the extreme so it is what you want it to be. That's so much in the world is so uncontrollable, you know, being able to have art as a kind of release point and use it as a way to show what you love about the world is so important and so awesome. And part of the reason why I love art so much, and I want to be able to share some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, or over the past year, I guess, with you guys. So yeah, this is a pretty rough nose shape on there, but you can see it's sort of coming together. And if I add some contours on here, you can see better kind of how this facial structure is coming together here. And I'm liking it so far. I think it's coming out pretty good. I think I'm gonna move down to the mouth a little bit here. So we know that this is gonna be the bottom of the bottom lip here. So if we wanna go in here, and you've probably seen this one before, this little oval method to represent the muscles kind of the mouth. You've got the as I look at the orbicularis oris, or orbicularis oris. It's a tough one to say. I'm probably not saying that right. But this is the muscles around the mouth. And these are actually really cool because if you look at them, you know, they oftentimes artists will use this oval to kind of represent them and throw the mouth kind of wrapping around this shape, which is really helpful. And I find that it actually works quite well to create a pretty realistic lip shape. And a big thing to remember with lips is less is always more. If you overdo your lines, you're gonna automatically make them look strange. And I have this problem a lot, and I've been working on it, and definitely still need some practice at it. But if you just remember to simplify and really only show what is necessary, then you are gonna have a much better time and be able to really capture a lip type shape a lot better than you were. So as you can see here, I'm kind of doing a rough mock-up. It's important to remember that these bottom sections fold over the little sections here. Overlap is so important when it comes to everything in art. It really helps show form and dimensionality, and especially on the lips and on the face, you want to make sure that every single mark is so deliberate, and you're making every single mark with intentionality, which is something that I'm also trying to get better at because it's really, really hard to do. So if you can kind of see what I did there on this light lip form, I used the kind of balloon method, I'm gonna call it. I used, it's kind of funny, but my professor always called it the open book and two balloons, right? So on top we have our little book here, which is creating that kind of dip in between these two lips. And I'm gonna ink this one kind of all the way through with this ballpoint pen here, so it's a little bit clearer. So that's our open book there. And then we put two balloons to the side of it like this, wrapping around the oval that we had, and then this lip shape here, and then three balloons on the bottom with a little bit of overlap. So you see that balloon kind of overlaps like that. And then this guy goes here. Let me make sure I'm not drawing through onto this table. I probably am. I'm gonna put some extra scrap down so I protect the table a little bit better. Let's do like this. Okay. I also like having a little bit of paper underneath. I find that the pen actually works better if I'm not drawing directly on a hard surface. So you can kind of see how that is looking a little bit like a lip. It looks weird because, obviously I over-exaggerated this, and that's coming back to the simplicity of it. When you look at a lot of comic artists, which, I'm a little bit of a comic artist myself, you'll see that they simplify it. You'll see that they simplify it like so much, to the point where you're really only getting like the base structure of it. You'll get that overlap line, and you'll come up and you'll see a little bit of that book shape, and it'll go over and you'll see the beautiful connection here. And it's all about these overlaps, as I said, right? Because the little reference photo that I'm looking at here for this has kind of 3/4 view, 2/4 view of the face. And so just really simplifying everything into their most simple shapes, like trying to use the fewest amount of lines as possible to represent these lip shapes is so important. And once you get good at it, you'll be able to kind of whip stuff out like this. And I am most certainly not at this point yet, which is why I've had to look up a reference for this. But I mean, you'll see that so you've got like the book shape in here, and then the two balloons on the side, and then you can see 1, 2, 3 balloons down at the bottom, and it's really helpful, and it's a good little trick. So now that we've kind of gone over simple structures to the lips, we're gonna add some onto our main drawing here. And as always, I encourage you guys, I probably should preference this at the start. I'll do that at the next one. I encourage you guys to kind of follow along and draw along with me to practice this stuff, because all of this anatomy stuff, it's really a visual language, as I've said before, and the less you practice it, the more likely you are to forget it. So it's really, really, really important that you kind of focus on it and are always improving your skills, because that's the biggest thing with art, is as soon as you lax up and you stop focusing and stop learning, that is when you fall behind and you become useless in the industry, which is sad, but it's true. So always stay on top of your game, go to life drawing sessions, practice all of that stuff, and master the craft, learn the basics, and learn all the rules so you can break the rules. That's the most important thing that I will continue to say. And as soon as you do that, you will become probably even a better artist than I will. But hey, that's the whole point of this. So we're adding on some lip shapes here. I've got a rough structure. I'm gonna go, she has very, very thin lips, so I don't want to overdo these balloons. So I'm trying to keep them as simple and kind of small as possible. And you can see that I have totally overdone this. And if you look at it like that, that looks pretty goofy. You compare this to this, like this looks goofy because there's so many extra lines. So I'm gonna come back in here and erase out that shape, because that's my rough shape. I'm gonna keep this structure, but then I'm gonna come back with less lines and kind of try to improve it that way. And if I'm looking at this, I'm seeing that I feel like that's a line we might need. We're definitely gonna need these corner sections here, because that's where she's really pressing her lips down, and then maybe a little bit in the center. And then honestly, for the bottom lip, we're just gonna add like a little bit there, I think. And still doesn't look quite right. I messed up that section there. I kind of wish I had a smaller pencil and not just this big chunk of lead, but you got to work with the tools that you've got. That's another great art lesson that I learned from one of my amazing professors, is you control the tools do not control you. So being able to draw with whatever you are given is an important skill to have. We had one exercise that we did in class where we were doing gesture drawings with sticks, and that was our way of perfecting our craft with any tool, which is pretty funny. Do I recommend that? Honestly, yeah, I think it was pretty useful, and I feel like I did end up kind of learning a lot from that experience, even though it was quite strange. How am I feeling about this lip structure? I don't love it, but it's honestly not that terrible. I think I will live with it. And I also think that this line is too long. I'm trying to think. So like the ends of the lips kind of line up with these corners here, and I think that one was just a smidge too long. This is fine. She's got very, very pointy upper lips, which is very fascinating. So trying to capture that is definitely something that is kind of tricking me up a little bit, possibly. But if I add in kind of these lines here and build out this occipital area a little bit more, maybe it will help. You can also see that my bottom of the bottom lip did not really end up where I said it was going to, and that's okay too. It doesn't, once again, it's a rough blueprint. If we were going off of the pure mannequin form and making everything as accurately possible, like ideal human proportions, then that half measurement would have lined up better for the bottom lip. But instead, I'm gonna make that kind of the chin mark here, which I'm also okay with doing. Okay, so we have lips on there, we have a nose on there. I'm gonna kind of build out some of these other facial structures a little bit more. Like down here, we would have not the mentalis. This is the masseter. I think this is the masseter. Let me get my face anatomy. This one doesn't have everything that I'm looking for. Mentalis. This is the mentalis here. not the masseter. Masseter is something else. But this is a cool muscle because the muscle fibers for this muscle actually go like this. So, you know, normally you think of the muscles going in a line, but these fibers actually point towards the outside. So that's when you scrunch your chin in a certain way, you can actually see these little dots here, and that's because of the way that that muscle actually flows on there, which is super fascinating. Really cool stuff. So I'm seeing a little bit of contours kind of coming off the chin this way. There's a little bit of excess fat kind of down towards here. So I'm gonna try to capture that. I'm gonna throw a little bit of a neck on here finally, because I did not have one for the longest time, and that's okay. We can add a little bit of a hyoid here. We're gonna just kind of ballpark this in. It's gonna be nothing too crazy, like that, and then like this. This is my ballpark hyoid. If we really wanted to get into it, which, I mean, this is a little excessive because I can kind of barely see. There's a little bit of the sternocleidomastoid showing here on the neck, which this would connect up here. And then if we wanted to add in the clavicles here, we could take this measurement, which is going to be about 2/3 of the head, and bring it down here. And so this clavicle mark would probably go, or suprasternal notch mark, excuse me, sorry, would probably end up going here. And then we could take that measurement again and run it this way and up a little bit for the clavicles. So if we wanted to ballpark all of that out, which I always recommend doing, because I mean, it's so cool. Once you know these measurements, you can really construct the human body kind of from imagination, which it's a lot easier to do when you're not like taking it to like a full level of finish. But I mean, eventually you could definitely be able to do that, which is super awesome to kind of have this knowledge. I'll say it again, once you learn this stuff, it's never going to change. I mean, sure, we might become freaking robots at some point, but for the most part, normal humans will, you know, have these features and stay this way for probably the rest of time until we blow ourselves up. So, you know, study this stuff, remember it, and it is going to improve your art a whole lot, which is really cool. So you can kind of see I added in a little bit of the neck hole there, a little bit of the chest and the rib cage here. We got our clavicles on there. If we wanted to bring this sternocleidomastoid to the correct spots, we could do that and bring this like this, and then run the hyoid bones or the hyoid muscles down here, and there would be a little bit of this clavicle on that side, and then this would obviously come here. You'd have your traps in the back like this. This would create, there's other muscles here. Yeah, there's the platysma is a crazy one that runs this way and like this, which you see a lot of. If you strain your neck in a certain way, you can see this fibered muscle kind of going like this. You'll see it a lot in some comics and stuff. What's the name of that guy? Liefeld. Liefeld would draw it like it would look like spaghetti. He didn't quite know how to draw it correctly, so he draw it like spaghetti all over the. It's funny. Look up Liefeld platysma probably, and something will probably come up. But he always drew it quite comically, dare I say. That's pun not intended. So yeah, we kind of have a little bit of a neck structure going on there, and I actually think that looks pretty good. It's pretty cool once you know how to do this stuff, that it just kind of flows, you know. You just kind of do it and you just put it where it goes, put the muscles where they're supposed to connect, and boom, we have a neck going into a body that looks pretty accurate here. If we wanted to keep going to, I'm getting distracted. We're doing face stuff today. We're not focused on this, but all the neck stuff is, you know, important to kind of put the face on the body. That's one thing that I definitely found I struggled with for a while a couple years ago was adding in and learning all this face structure and anatomy stuff, but then not knowing how to attach it to the rest of the body. So understanding that the sternocleidomastoid mastoid connects to the masseter, which would be right here kind of on that skeleton, and it runs up down the neck, and you'll see this line a lot. Obviously this is a little over exaggerated. If this was all going to be like rendered out, I would probably only see that line right there, and then the rest of this would kind of fade away into the body fat. You'd see a little bit of this hyoid here, which can be represented with just a small little line. You're only really going to see these things pop on extremely skinny people and people that are very, very muscular. So this is a little bit over rendered for the case, but it's okay because we're learning, you know. Obviously we could slap on a bunch of other face muscles here too, but kind of understanding where some of them go is definitely important to building out the proper face. I don't love that one. That one's not great. I wish I had I could actually pull them up. This one's scary, but it works. So obviously knowing that you have the orbicularis oris here, which is going to be that circle that's so often used to represent the mouth, and that muscle actually runs this way around the mouth, which is really cool. Another awesome thing about knowing the directions of muscles is all wrinkles are actually going to go in the opposite direction of the muscle grain, right? So because this muscle for the orbicularis oris runs like this, all of the wrinkles on them are going to contour like that, which is super important and good to know, because if you're drawing an older character, you can understand how those wrinkles are actually working in terms with the muscles and those years of muscle use that create said wrinkles, which is, cool stuff to know. The more you know, right? Anyways, you have the similar thing with the eye one too, the orbicularis oculis up here. Same first name as this one, because, circular muscle plus cavity that it's around. So those muscles will be like that. And this is where we can kind of get into adding in the eyes, understanding what's going on there. So if we add in, we're going to put some pupils in these eyes, and it's going to get a little bit freaky here for a second as I add these circles in. So now that we have pupils in here, take my eraser a little bit, clean up this section so this is easier to draw on. And we're gonna take our kind of muscle and eyelids, and we're gonna wrap it around that pupil, right? We're gonna wrap it around. We're gonna add a little bit of depth to it too. And then we're gonna take this and, solidify that as the ocular cavity. We're going to remember that this muscle, wraps around here like this, right? And then we can put the eye in the center like this. And I can't lie, this is looking pretty flat. I'm not loving it, but a way we can fix that up is by, of course, I don't have a thinner pencil to go back in on this with. So what are we gonna do here? We're gonna cry, just kidding. I have a solution. I believe there's one piece of gray lead in here. Or there was. Where is he? Come on. There he is. Fuck it. Pardon my French. We're just going to do it in blue. So we're going to go back here. And the reason this isn't looking good is because there's not really any depth to this. We need to get those contours and really push the layers, right? Because this eyelid, like everything else in the entire freaking universe, has depth to it. And so we need to be able to add in that little section of the eyelid there where the contour is actually going to go like this and wrap around this way, right? And then this is going to wrap around the eye like that. And in this case, we're not really going to see much of that from the top here. It's going to kind of be covered, but you can imagine it wrapping around like this. Being able to run these lines like so And I know that looks kind of creepy now, but you can see just by adding that little depth there has totally changed the way that looks. Like that has, you could reach in there now, when compared to before, it was just flat because I hadn't added this ridge here. So you can see how that totally changes everything and really amps it up to the next level. And that is what's going to help you take your facial structure and anatomy game to that next level along with me as well. So yeah, remembering those skills and really focusing on the depth and, you know, obviously looking at your reference photo and understanding where those contours are happening is really going to help improve things. So I'm liking that a lot more. I'm thinking that's a lot stronger than it was before, which is excellent. It's what we want to be seeing. Small improvements, daily wins make a difference. We can go in and add a little bit of an eyebrow up here too if we're really feeling like it. We can pull the kind of connecting between some of these other muscles here too. You've got your zygomaticus, which runs up here from the orbicularis oris up to the zygomatic arch. This here is where you're going to see this shape kind of come from, where you have the circular muscle shape of the orbicularis oculus running into the zygomaticus, which is going to help create that kind of pole shape around the side of the face, right? So it goes from curve, and you'll see this a lot in drawings where the skin here kind of wraps and then tucks back that way. So we'll be seeing a little bit of that there, and then pull that out a little bit. And yeah, look at that. We've got a face that is coming together. That blue is kind of scary. It looks like she's a robot or something now. But if you wanted to, you could add in some little eyelashes too. Boop, 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 boop. Bing, 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 bop. Yeah, so cool. I'm liking that a lot. You can see contour here too. Little bit extra here where that zygomaticus is. A little bit of extra fat down there. So that is, I mean, that's the start of a face right there. I can't lie. This is going pretty well. And then this is the worst part about drawing eyes and faces and people and stuff, is you got to do this twice. What's up with that? Who freaking designed this? Who made us have to draw eyes twice? You can draw like the best eye ever, and then you're like, oh shit, I gotta freaking copy it to the other side. What the heck? So this is where I normally fall apart, is trying to match these up. But we're gonna see if, you know, using my skills in practice here, we can get this to look similar enough and not mess it up. Okay, and then this eye is kind of looking over there. And dare I say, I didn't do that bad. That's pretty aight. I can't be mad about that. That's not bad. That is not bad at all. And then we've got that line there, and then we can add in the other eyebrow, which kind of goes to the edge of that face structure there, which is kind of the corner of the face. If there were to be a corner of the face, it would be right about there where that eyebrow ridge kind of tucks down into the ocular cavity and then moves back down. You've got the zygomaticus on this side as well. It's a great muscle name. It's really awesome. I don't know why. I just like it. It's great to say. Good fun. And then obviously here we're gonna have a little bit more, because this zygomaticus is gonna wrap around kind of like that. And we're gonna move back here. And before, when that was a really hard corner, we're gonna come in, we're gonna kind of soften that up by adding these muscles back in on there. And it's gonna help improve the facial structure and, you know, make it a little bit more realistic. Get rid of that robo jaw a little bit, because it was looking a little stiff before. So yeah, I'm feeling like that is pretty all right. I'm thinking we're going to add some hair possibly onto this face, and then maybe we'll go back through and clean it up a little bit. I wish I had a black colored pencil. I would prefer to do it with that, but maybe I'll try to run back through it with some ink. And we'll see how that goes. But we're gonna keep moving here with hair. Now hair is also hard, but we are going to improve. I guess I could do a little ear lesson real quick too. Let's do that actually, because ears are really fun. You've got a bunch of different kind of sections to the ear, and as an artist, it is important to kind of know a shorthand. And actually, I've been seeing this thing kind of going around on Instagram where it's like, artists, how do you draw ears? I prefer to do it sort of like this. And this is obviously a little bit over accurate. Normally, I'll be a little bit simpler when I do my ear shape, right? Normally, if I'm doing it cartoony, it's just that. I just do that for my ear shape. But if you're gonna do it a little bit more realistic, you kind of gotta understand those different sections of the ear and how they kind of work together and create this beautiful song and dance, and make like a really cool structure. So that is kind of that there. Let me look up, I don't remember the names of these structures. Structure. Nose structure. We're not doing nose, we're doing ears. Oopsies, wrong thing. Wow, this is just a close-up of someone's actual ear. I don't like that. Let's get this scientific illustration instead. Okay, so this is the ear I put on here. We're gonna do a second little ear drawing up here to kind of better explain these sections here. We're gonna go down. Rough ear shape is like this. This is another thing that actually works quite well if you're doing it in a 2/3 ratio. 2/3 ratio is such an easy cheat code to like kind of drawing everything. So this section here, which we're all very familiar with, this is the lobular, L-O-B-U-L-E right here, the earlobe, you know, more commonly called, and that is gonna run up into the helix of the ear, which is this outermost section here, right? So this is the helix, and the helix runs down and goes back in like that a little bit, and the two sections that end up kind of created by this helix kind of merging in with the antihelix. Wow, look at that, so original, right? The helix goes this way and then the antihelix comes out this way. And the antihelix is cool because it makes this little triangle shape here. It's kind of got two little parts to it. You'll see this a lot, and a lot of people don't really understand and just kind of bang it in there. I kind of banged it in here. It didn't actually turn out as well as it was supposed to, but that's fine. So that antihelix runs down like this and kind of creates these little offshoot sections here. And then obviously you have your the actual like ear portion, the little where the sound goes in. It's kind of right there. And then let's see, what other sections did I miss? The antitragus is this kind of bottom portion of the antihelix. Now this is a really cool one. Let's see, let's put this here. So this section kind of here would be like the antitragus. And this is kind of cool because the antitragus can actually overlap the helix here. This is something that's found with people from descendants from the Mediterranean area. You'll actually see this antitragus overlapping the helix here a little bit on the outside, which is kind of cool. So you'll see in this one, this antitragus is on the inside of the ear, but if I were to overlap it like that, you know, that is something that can most certainly happen on, you know, a person. So if you want to make a character that has roots from the Mediterranean region, do that, and people will think, oh my God, look at that, they're so smart. Or they won't even notice it, because so much of art is unnoticed. But that is another reason why we draw things, right? Sometimes you just got to do it for yourself. So that's kind of the overlap there that I was explaining. And yeah, that's kind of a rough ear shape. I know it's kind of hard to see. Still learning, still getting better at it, but overall, boom, ear. Remembering kind of these structure things of the anti-helix and the helix can help kind of improve the cartoony nature of how you do things too. So like I kind of just simplify the eel to big helix and then a little bit of the ridge of the helix. And, you know, that's fine too. You don't really need to go crazy with any of this inner workings. I've seen people that also kind of just do like a line through there to add a little bit more depth to it. But I keep my stuff mostly simple, stupid simple. So I don't kind of go crazy with the extremities and everything. Okay, so now that we have the ear on there, sadly, most of this is going to get covered on this model because her hair is long. So it runs mostly over the forehead, barely seeing any forehead on this person. And then we're going to do like that. And this one's kind of tough because there's not a lot. I mean, obviously, there's volume to everything, right? So we're remembering that even though these are strands of hair, they're still going to have volume to it. And remembering that volume is going to help kind of make the hair more realistic too, which is quite helpful. So like we pull this way, add volume to it there. There's a little bit of an offshoot there. You know, hair is so crazy, and I still am pretty bad at drawing it. But remembering this volume thing has definitely helped me kind of turn a corner in my hair drawing, because it's allowing me to create some dimensionality to something that can feel so flat. Like you can just like kind of slap hair onto stuff and sometimes it'll just look so flat. So kind of planning out these lines here and understanding that yes, hair is technically, you know, little strands and it is indeed flat. Well, it's not flat because nothing's flat, but it can feel very flat. But kind of forcing yourself to add contours and dimensionality to it. I mean, now she looks like some sort of an alien creature with these weird things there. But this is just helping lay out the groundwork. And I tucked her hair behind her ear, which she isn't doing in the reference photo. And am I going to keep it? I actually think not. I kind of like the hair flowing over the ear a little bit more. So I'm going to sadly cover up our beautiful ear drawing, but that's okay. We'll have plenty of other faces to draw and ears to put on them. So, boom. Look at that. We have hair on this individual now. Okay, so I think this is a pretty crazy structure of a pencil drawing. I think I'm going to kind of go back in and simplify things out a little bit here and see if we can't ink this and get a good final product out of it. So I'm gonna, on my iPad here, which once again y'all can't see, and maybe one day I'll change that in some sort of a way, or maybe I won't. I'm gonna pull up a comic style face, because I want to practice kind of inking this and simplifying it down to something really, really, really simple. Let's see here. I like that one. She's not great. Whoa, excuse me, that was kind of gross. Okay, I like these. So I've got a light reference that I'm gonna kind of use for my simple line weight, my simple line work. And this is gonna really help when it comes to, especially the hair, because the hair is gonna be the hardest part. The rest of it I should be able to figure out pretty easily, but the hair I wanna be able to capture in a more comic style. So we're gonna pull out our inking tools. We got our Tombow pens. I don't think I have my blackout pen, but I think that's fine. I don't think I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna be using a Sharpie pen and just my G-Tube ballpoint pen for my other lines and stuff. And then these are gonna be the thicker outer lines. I'm gonna start with this one and we're gonna see how this goes. We're just gonna start inking it up. I think with the way these lines look right now, I think this is gonna end up looking like a little bit of a older character, which isn't entirely accurate to the model sheet. As I was saying earlier, the model sheet, the freaking line of action photo that I'm looking at. But I'm honestly okay with that because I feel like it's gonna make this character more interesting. And that, ooh, probably shouldn't have used that for that. I think that's more important at the end of the day than making something that's ultra accurate. I think the more visual interest and kind of connection you can build with your audience and their kind of, you know, interest in the character and like, ooh, like, you know, why do they look that way? Why do they act that way? It helps, you know, make things more entertaining, more intriguing, and will keep your audience coming back, which is obviously important because you can't make money if people don't read your stuff or see your stuff. So, oof. Yeah, those lips, not the best. I cannot lie. Gonna add a little bit of depth onto there. Yeah, these were tough. This was a tough one. Not easy, not an easy one. You know, that's okay. They're not all gonna be winners. Sometimes you're gonna, you know, put some marks on the page and be like, ew, yikes. And, you know, some people will say, you know, change that line, get it perfect. But at the end of the day, I don't even know where I was going with that. It doesn't matter. Just don't be afraid to make mistakes, I guess, is maybe what I was trying to say. Yeah, I am just a huge fan of, you know, a little bit of a sloppy ink to start and then just cleaning it up later. And I think that is going to be what I'm going to do with this one. For sure. So like these lines here are going to be a lot kind of sloppier than they're going to end up being, but that is okay because this is kind of the rough stage. When we go back in with we'll go back in with the Tombow pen and some other stuff and be able to clean up these lines a little bit and I think make them more understandable and readable, but kind of keeping it simple, keeping it loose on the first pass through, I think is gonna make it better in the long run. So we're gonna go back in here and add a little bit of a eyelash shape. And, you know, there's a solid chance that when I'm done with this, I hate it, you know? There's a big, fat, non-zero chance that that happens. And that is totally okay. Because, once again, this is all practice. We are just kind of trying to get used to some more focused anatomy stuff and trying to turn it into kind of what we want it to be. So, you know, just every day practicing is so important, and who cares if it doesn't look like the freaking Mona Lisa, you know? That's not really gonna, it's not really gonna happen. So just draw crappy stuff as often as you can, because the more time you put into it, eventually one day you're gonna realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually kind of good at this. And, you know, or it'll just be a struggle forever. But, you know, that's kind of the fun of it too. it's not really something that ends. There's always going to be something that you can practice at. There's always going to be room for improvement. And I think not getting discouraged by that, but getting motivated by that is like the biggest turnaround you can have as an artist. You know, going from, oh, this is never gonna end, I'm never gonna be good at everything, to being like, oh, this is never gonna end. Like, there's always gonna be stuff for me to get better at and learn and take in, and there's gonna be so many other people who can do things that I can't do, and I can learn from them and, you know, their experiences and stuff. That's awesome. That's like the fun of it. And I think, you know, having that mindset is the make or break mentality. Once you can pivot and change your point of view, everything will open up. All of the doors in the world will be at your disposal. And that's pretty cool. A little bit of that, a little bit of that. Bang, bang, boom. Super still notch. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Obviously, because I'm doing this pretty comic style, I'm not gonna go crazy with the lines, because the more lines you add onto the face, the more things get gummed up and distracted. So I might add a little bit there to kind of show her, I guess, time-tested nature a little bit better. I feel like that's what I'm going for. I think this line is a little bit much here. I don't think that was completely necessary. Probably should have just ended it there. Maybe add a little bit here. Kind of show that a little bit. And then if I wanted to go back in with a little bit of a shadow, I could. Do something like that. Maybe come in here with a little bit of something. This is when I start to overdo it a little bit, but we're gonna push this a little bit past just regular comic style. And we're gonna try to make it something with a little bit more pizzazz to it. So I'm coming in. This is kind of, you've probably seen this a little bit in the sketchbook videos too, of this inking style that I kind of like. I kind of do, you know, a rough outline of where I'm gonna place some of my hatching, and then I kind of just jam it all in there. If I had ink, I would probably ink out the hair, black out the hair, because she has black hair, so I would probably do that. But this is also just on 8.5 by 11 regular printer paper, so I'm not gonna go that crazy, you know. Obviously it's not worth it to waste a bunch of ink on an 11 by 17 just regular paper drawing. So we will save the materials. Maybe add a little bit of shadow back here with some hatching. To the back there, and then the lines here. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I gotta be a little bit careful with this because it might smudge some of this, because this pen is very smudgeable. But you can kind of get a better sense of how it looks out. It is kind of cool to see the underdrawing kind of still on here too. Gives it a little bit more structure and stuff like that it kind of wouldn't have with just the ink. But yeah, I think overall I am quite proud of this one. Yeah, I think this actually turned out pretty good. Definitely practiced, you know, the eyes, they're a little non-symmetrical, I see now, but it's a good step in the right direction. I actually feel like these are some of the better eyes that I've drawn in a minute. So being able to recognize that and appreciate that is big. So yeah, you know, I hope you guys kind of followed along and enjoyed the process here of creating this face. And we will be doing some more in the next coming days. Hopefully I can keep doing these every day, but I kind of don't know if that's possible. I've had a little bit of extra free time the last couple days, so just been trying to make some more art and practice a little bit more. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You know, obviously drop a comment if you have anything that you think I should work on next, or anything that you want to work on along with me. I can help kind of guide a lesson towards anything. So yeah, like, share, do all the stuff, and I will see you guys again in the next one. Peace out.